Dear guests, the next panel discussion is the Eastern Mediterranean Strategic Significance to European and Global Processes. Please take your seat while our speakers prepare for the panel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this delightful panel, actually, because we have. I'm so happy that we have an exceptional array of speakers that I'm going to introduce to you very slightly, but you might know some of them already. This is so. My name is George Hadjipavli. To make sure that I introduce myself this year, I'm the program coordinator of the East Mediterranean Studies program at the University of Oxford. We are part of the European Studies Centre. Somehow paradoxically, that's because we look at this Mediterranean, which of course, partially a European region, of course, but we look at the importance of the region in relation to European security primarily, but of course not exclusively. So today our panel will kind of keep to that theme. We will look at the importance, strategic importance of the East Mediterranean in relation to European, but also global processes. And we have a panel that represents both the European and the more broadly the global. I'd like to give just some brief context of one of the important developments in the East Mediterranean, but also that exceeds more globally, and that's, some people might know this as the India-Middle East corridor, Middle East-Europe corridor. Let's not forget Europe, known as IMEC, which is a strategic multimodal economic platform corridor that connects all the way from South France, that's the idea, to India. And part of this you have energy projects like pipelines, electricity interconnectors to make sure we cater to both net zero and non-net zero enthusiasts that we have now in power, but also physical interconnectivity programs, railways. There's a non-physical component, there's the investment, there's innovation. So this is all part of this massive linkage between the south of France, all the way through the south, South Europe, East Mediterranean, the Arab Gulf, and India. So given this broad context, I'm delighted that we have a panel of 4. I'm not going to speak much longer because our speakers are much more qualified than me. And to present them very briefly, going from the left to the right, we have Ambassador Amira Oron, who is the ex-Israeli ambassador to Turkey and Egypt, but now a senior researcher with the INSS, which is one of the leading national security think tanks in Israel. We have His Excellency, the High Commissioner of India, who we just met on the sidelines, but he's been telling me about his first year in Cyprus, and it's delightful to have the representative of the Indian state, because obviously they're a core pillar of the IMEC corridor, which influences Europe and the East Mediterranean. To my right, we have Mr. Pamboridis, George Pamboridis, former Health Minister of Cyprus, but also an expert lawyer with multiple insight from our conversations. And then to the right, we have Aziel Philippos Goulandris, who is the Secretary General of the World Federation of UN Associations. That's a mouthful, so you abbreviate it to WFUNA, right? And he's also a lawyer with experience in international maritime law as well. But most critically, he served in the French Navy. So he served aboard a military vessel conducting operations. So he will tell us also about the practical side of enforcing or violating international law, depending on how one looks at it. But jokes aside, the format is going to be as follows. Each speaker will have 7 minutes of introductory remarks to present their understanding of our topic. Then I might have like a short comment, perhaps, to each speaker for a reaction based on their remarks. And then we will open the floor to the audience for Q&A before we conclude. Fantastic. So who would like to, may also, I'll be a bit impolite and I'll tell you when you have 30 seconds left to, or a minute. Would you like a minute or 30 seconds when you have left in your speech?
7 minutes is a good amount of time.
Fantastic. Sorry, 30, yeah. Fantastic. So shall we begin from the left to right? What do you think? Yes.
Maybe it will be better to talk about the IMEC and then I'll talk about my,
Okay, yes.
my example.
First of all, let me thank the organizer Cyprus Forum for inviting me to this panel. And the moderator, Mr. George, has already set the context by showing you the map of the IMEC corridor. It was announced during the India's G20 presidency in 2023, and the initial signatory countries were 8 of them, straddling from India, US, Saudi Arabia, UAE, France, Germany, Italy, and European Union. They were the initial partners who signed the IMEC concept. So basically, what is this IMEC corridor is an alternative to the traditional corridor. So it is multimodal in the sense sea route, land route, and rail route. So there is a two different segments. So you saw on the map, maybe you can put the map again. The southern corridor, which connects India to Israel, basically India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. And the northern corridor starts from Israel up to France via Italy, and then connects to Germany also. So if I may say that it has made a notable progress in past couple of years, despite the conflict which is happening in the region. As of this month, the eastern corridor connecting India to the Gulf has advanced rapidly, while the northern corridor through Middle East to Europe has experienced delay for the reasons all of us know. And it is going to be a transformational significance for India's strategic interest, positioning itself as a global trade and in geopolitics. So it will reduce the logistic costs by 30% and transportation time by 40%, because if you see, India has been trying to have alternative land routes via our neighborhood, but it has not been working. So this new concept will reduce our logistics and alternative time compared to the traditional shipping lanes like Suez Canal or Red Sea and things like that. And it has found all-round support by the initial founding members. And if you see, Prime Minister Modi met with President Trump in February. He met with French President, and in the joint communique, which is available in public domain, lists out the aspiration of the two leaders, two sides to work on this. And fast forward, Prime Minister came here in June for the historic visit to Cyprus. And there we also, Cypriot leadership, Cyprus has also expressed their interest to be part of our overall process, but it is a bit far off because the initial 8 has to first agree and set up because directly doesn't fall in the corridor, but it can be one of the nodes, what Cyprus is itself. But there is a formulation in the joint declaration which both governments issued, and you can have a look into it. So we are very much aware of Cyprus's interest in being part of the overall process. And going back, this process also aligns with India's broader strategy for connectivity, and including One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative promoting India as a bridge between Asia and Europe. And at leadership level also, we have supported it as one of the biggest game changers that may happen in the 21st century. Now let me talk about a bit on the concrete outcomes which has achieved. India and UAE has taken several steps to implement the IMEC corridor, and we have launched a India-UAE virtual trade corridor, which was launched in September 2024 following the visit of our foreign minister. And there is implementation is going on. There is a platform which is called Maitri, and it's called Master Application for International Trade and Regulatory Interface. So this digital infrastructure has streamlined trade processes between our two countries. So a lot of back and forth advocacy is going on, training is going on, and which is in terms of economic numbers, our trade is also growing now. India-EU trade is about $85 billion, demonstrating the corridor's economic potential. So I'll stop here, and maybe we can come back later. But to summarize, the work has already started on the southern corridor. Now it is up to the northern corridor partners, including European Union, Italy, France, Israel, to start the process on the northern corridor. Of course, transatlantic partners like USA and others are also very interested in this corridor because of the obvious reasons, because of the transparent nature, open, democratic system by which this corridor will be financed and implemented.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that wonderful update, especially on the decisive progress in the southern parts, but also on bilateral relations. And of course, we had the visit by Prime Minister Modi of India, so that was an important milestone as well. Shall we go to you, Amira, if you're ready?
Sure.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ambassador, for giving us this very interesting information about the IMEC. I would prefer to share with you another example of regional integration, maybe not intra-regional, but a regional integration. I think it's very impressive. It's already active. So if I may, I will go to back to my papers. Of course, I'm honored to be here in this very important conference. I will dedicate the next few minutes to talk about a regional multilateral energy project that expresses the partnership between the countries in the region, as well as the extensive potential it holds. Based on my experience and my personal and professional testimony from the years I was the Israeli ambassador to Egypt, 2020 to 2024. I don't know if you know, but always the energy sector was a very important and vital component of the relations between Israel and Egypt. The discoveries of large gas reserves in the Eastern Mediterranean in the economic waters of Israel and Egypt from 1999 created a new reality for both countries and taught us how we can cooperate in a different sphere of regional economic activity. We are exporting, Israel is exporting gas now to Egypt. In the past, we used to buy gas from Egypt and also to Jordan. I'm talking about 13 BCM per year that Israel exports to Egypt. 13 all in all, 10 BCM to Egypt and 3 to Jordan. The peace relations that we managed to keep tightly, Israel and Egypt, plus the relations that both Israel and Egypt managed to create separately with Cyprus and Greece, helped us all to build the forum that I'm going to talk about, which is the EMGF, the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. It was established on January 2019. And since then, it's very active and it shows significant meaning to the regional activity. There are 8 member countries: Israel, Egypt, Cyprus, Greece, France, Italy, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority. Also, there are 3 observer members: the USA, the World Bank, and the European Union. And all in all, we managed to create an umbrella for cooperation and dialogue around the development of gas resources in the region. The member countries and the other members managed to formulate strategies for activity based on shared vision, establish a competitive regional gas market, and ensure supply and demand. I would like to point out 3 dimensions, or maybe 3 pillars that characterize the most, in my eyes, the forum and I think have made it an active organization. The first one is the regional integration, of course. It includes collaborative efforts between member countries to develop and manage the region natural gas resources, while ensuring sustainable and secure supply for local consumption and export markets. Simultaneously, integration involves promoting the integration of regional energy markets to facilitate efficient natural gas trade and optimize trade, cross-border infrastructure, such as, we have the pipelines between Israel and Egypt. We have two, and we are going to have a third one from Aphrodite gas field to Egypt. Also, the EU countries and the USA are contributing a lot to the regional integration. We see how the organization, the EMGF, promotes the interest of American and European companies for reducing European dependence on the Russian gas. At this point, I would like to mention what I witnessed on the ministerial meeting in 2022 in Cairo, when Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was saying, after the three parties, Israel, EU, and Egypt, signed the memorandum of understanding, she said that she sees Israel and Egypt as a reliable supplier for gas for Europe. I think this very simple sentence means a lot, because it gives us approval that we can have a huge potential and huge incentive in developing our regional integration. The second dimension I wish to emphasize that relates to the forum is the fact that the private sector plays a major role in its activity. International gas companies are partners in the Gas Industry Advisory Committee that promotes dialogue between private sector, government, international financial institutes, and other bodies. This activity created a shared and cohesive community of business people from the region and the world, and I had the honor to participate in several of their meetings, sharing economic and commercial interest. It's also a place where it's a channel for constructive dialogue, and also a place to raise initiatives and to find solutions to disputes and disagreements. The third pillar I wish to emphasize is the importance of diplomacy, including economic diplomacy, which can and should ensure that energy cooperation is not disrupted by regional political tensions. The forum enables member countries to prioritize energy cooperation and work together in peace in order, of course, to develop the common capabilities. There are also countries in the forum that managed to create this membership as an opportunity for them for a transition from crisis to economic prosperity, or an opportunity to strengthen their position in regional and international arenas. The forum is also a diplomatic mechanism that can deter challenging factors like Turkey and prevent it from imposing its will, creating facts on the ground, or being a competing factor in this very important field of natural gas, and maybe perhaps in the future bring about a change in its position. So in conclusion, I can say it can be determined that the establishment of the EMGF is an expression of maturation of geostrategic processes in the Eastern Mediterranean and shared perception of its member countries regarding the importance of the East Mediterranean to their national security. its establishment and activity, even during crisis periods like the one we are witnessing for the last 2 years in the region, of course, in Israel, unfortunately, expresses the strengthening of the weight of pragmatic realpolitik considerations at the expense of rigid ideologies. So I will end here, and I will say that we see the activity of the EMGF as a very good example of regional integration that absolutely can help us learn more about the possibilities that the IMEC is presenting to us.
Thank you very much, dear Amira. And to draw a link between His Excellency's comments and yours, with the northern part of the corridor stack, I think the EMGF vision and mission might be a critical step towards getting things slightly unstuck. But of course, as you said, there's also the challenge of Turkey that we might come on later. But let me just stress what Amira said about the centrality of the EMGF and the energy dimension to European security. I was speaking to a friend from Northern Europe yesterday who was telling me about, for instance, how Turkey has to be a central pillar of European security. And I said, you know what, because of Ukraine, of course. And I said, well, you know, if your objective is to do well in the war in Ukraine, then how can you expect Ukraine, facing a far more capable and bigger country, to prevail when through Turkey, in the Eastern Mediterranean, Russia, the Europeans pay through energy purchases into Russia more than they contribute to Ukraine as financial and military assistance. So this is another important dimension to stress. And over to George Pamboridis, if you'd like.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this interesting discussion. Allow me to start with IMEC and say that, to start from where the High Commissioner has already touched upon, the involvement of Cyprus. It's not a real involvement per se. It's, we're in the way, actually. We're not helping in any real way because we're an island. So far as the economic aspect is concerned, Cyprus can definitely benefit from this, provided that it invests in infrastructure projects which will allow the interested parties to utilize Cyprus. I do see some benefits in the shipping aspect of this new financial, economic development. So that could, with the right policies, bring benefits to Cyprus. However, geopolitically, Cyprus can benefit a lot from this. The mere fact that countries that are conceiving the modern world in a similar manner as things are transitioning very swiftly, are coming together to introduce a new cooperation and allegiance, I would say, because you do need an allegiance to this, brings a fresh perspective on the whole issue, just as the Eastern Mediterranean Forum changed things and created a political reality on the ground. IMEC will definitely create another new political reality on the ground. So for small players like Cyprus, where the narrative of our adversaries dictates us to open up our eyes and witness the realities on the ground, i.e. the invasion and occupation of our country. The counter-argument is no. This is the realities on the ground come from greater cooperations like IMEC and the European, the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, which demonstrate that countries that can benefit from cooperating in economic fields and energy field, and the energy field specifically, can create allegiances which will eventually demand peace for the economic prosperity of the project. So I believe Cyprus was proven right by choosing the right side of history, by being on the right side of the world in part of the European Union, and a natural ally to all the countries involved in both of these projects. So I think I will allow my time for the wisdom of the other contributors. That's it from me.
Thank you for those brief but nonetheless wise remarks. And I'm pretty sure Cypriot policymakers can benefit from some of your insight, but that's a different discussion. Let's go to Aziel for the time being.
Thank you very much, George. So my name is Aziel Goulandris. My organization may be less known to some of you, so let me just say what it is about. It's a mouthful, as George said. The World Federation of UN Associations. Basically, for the last 79 years, we were founded 1 year after the United Nations. We are here to defend more than the United Nations, but the idea behind it, which actually is, I think, more important than the organization that actually represents it right now, which is called the United Nations. But the idea of a global organization that is based on multilateralism, that brings multilateral solution to global problems and things like this. Obviously, it's at this particular moment of time, I think it's a more difficult idea to defend. So let me just make a small digression to say that I don't think things are as bad as they look. I think they look particularly bad. My office is based in New York, so I'm at the center. So I hear a lot from inside the UN. I hear from diplomats. I think, yes, there is a shrinking of multilateral space in the world, and I think this has impact on everything, including in the region, including in what we heard just before in this regional project. But it is a little bit, the perception is a little bit exaggerated because of the impact of the United States basically not paying their dues to the US, to the UN because of the shift of policy. But I think this is conjunctural. It's not as bad. The United Nations and multilateralism in the last 80 years, we are going to have the anniversary on the 24th of October of the United Nations, 80 years, has gone through different challenges in the past. And this is not, or maybe it's not the biggest one, and I think it's not definitely the end. So that's a little bit of positiveness there to say that let's not forget about it. And the reason why I'm saying let's not forget about it is because the ambassador said before, and maybe bring about a change in Turkey's position in the end. That's what she said. Now, the thing is, so this is my take, I think if we don't bring about a change to all the region's actors, and especially a big actor like Turkey, I wouldn't be able to say, oh, the project is doomed or anything is doomed. I wouldn't be able to say, but definitely it's not a good way to start. And I think a good way to think about this is how the UN was created. The UN was not created because like the COP conferences that are unfortunately failing all the time. That's not how the UN was created. The UN was created on the ashes of the Second World War after very, very specific events made it possible that countries agree to what they agreed. If you put the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, for example, which was signed in 1947, you erase it from people's memories and you put it to be signed by the countries of today, it would never be signed by all the countries of the UN. It would never happen. So that's just an example to say things that happened that led to the creation of the biggest multilateral organization that still stands, 193 countries, were very specific events that are difficult to replicate. And if I go back to the region, and again, we have people that are representing countries from the region here, so I wouldn't be the best expert, but I would say the region doesn't have those prerequisites right now to create such a thing. So I think if we think of regional integration, we should not forget about the UN as a potential way to find solutions, or as a forum to actually work with, even if right now it seems a little bit negative, a little bit powerless, and so on and so forth. And I think the countries of the region are maybe difficult to convince right now, but in their history, we can find easy ways to convince them. For example, two of them are Balkan countries, Greece and Turkey, and around 100 years ago, the Balkans were the powder keg of Europe and all that. And if you think of the analogy, I don't want to be negative for sure, but the Eastern Mediterranean could be the powder keg of the world to a certain degree. So I think that this idea of bringing about all the countries to the cooperation table should be front and center. And I do believe that even if, again, it's not perfect, the UN should have some role to play because of this stable way that it was established and because it is there. I don't think we can establish something regional that will be as strong. Yeah, I will also leave the rest of the 1 minute that's left on your phone.
Yes. Thank you so much, Aziel. I'd like to ask a very brief follow-up and to ask our speakers if they can, as few words as possible, to provide an answer or reflection. What do you think is the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge for the realization of IMEC? And since Aziel delved a bit deeper into that, how can the region, in realizing and blocking the Northern Corridor, perhaps through MGF, but also through Turkey's contestation in Cypriot and Greek maritime waters, how can the region learn from perhaps the UN's inability to prevent certain wars? Not least in Russia, Ukraine, not least in the region, but elsewhere. And of course, I say this with being very firm that the world is better with the UN rather than without the UN. Should we go from the left to right again, if that's okay?
IMEC is important not only for India, but also for European and transatlantic security and prosperity. If implemented, it will be reshape how trade flows, energy security and geopolitical alignment between South Asia, Middle East, Gulf, Eastern Mediterranean and Europe. Of course, if it doesn't bring value to all the key partners, it is a non-starter. So let me summarize how it is important for India, how it is important for Europe and transatlantic. For India, it provides an opportunity to diversify exports, routes, reduce dependence on existing choke points, and integrate more deeply into European value chain. It also reduces the transit time and logistic cost. For Europe, it is an alternative linkage to energy and trade markets at a time when the continent seeks diversification of energy sources and the supply chain. The corridor's energy and digital pillar would be of interest to Europe because it directly aligns with its strategic interest and strategic priorities. Greater interconnectivity with Gulf and South Asia also reduces Europe's exposure to single route risks and builds redundancy into critical supply chain. For transatlantic perspective, US and Europe, IMEC is attractive because it offers a rule-based multilateral infrastructure alternative to large state-owned projects that have in some cases generated strategic dependencies. A corridor backed by open standards, transparent financing and interoperable digital customs framework will be like a win-win for all the partners. That is why if you see the senior leadership of the Western world have signaled political support for the corridor. And it has sustained political backing. And if you see G20, under the G20 framework also, there is a leaders investment and strategic investment regime, which there is a talk about financing this to the tune of 500 billion. The financing part would be of greater importance for this because anything to be operational, you need money to get it on stream. So that is what is my take on how this new concept and new corridor will bring value to all the stakeholders in the region.
Thank you very much for those reflections, Your Excellency. As you've seen, I've been taking notes, so that's very invaluable. Amira.
I can only add that the IMEC offers, I think, first of all, a psychology change in the mindset in the Middle East region. We are not very strong in regional integration. Europe is built like this, of course the EU, with the different challenges and difficulties. So I think it will be a great opportunity for the regional players and of course along the IMEC to work and to think in a different way, to educate the peoples about the benefits of cooperating instead of challenging all the time each other. I think it will create a big difference to many countries. Some of them are very rich, some of them are not that rich. It will enable many job creation and so on and so forth. So in all, it's a very positive initiative, a very huge one. I will mention one thing that we have to take into consideration, the issue of the Suez Canal. Since I was the Israeli ambassador to Egypt, I'm aware of the sensitivity of this issue, but I don't see it as either or. Maybe this huge initiative of the IMEC will develop redundancy, different routes of communication, of transportation in the region, between the region and Asia and Europe. So all the players and all the countries in the region will benefit from.
Thank you very much, Amira. Go to Mr. Pamboridis.
Just a small comment. It's a more of a philosophical reply, I would say. I see the UN as the pillar of the modern world, no matter what people say and the crisis that the concept undergoes at the moment. But and I believe that all regional initiatives, if placed under the existing umbrella of the international system, they can only reinforce that system rather than put it under doubt. So I honestly believe that regional integration is only possible under the premises that are made, are dictated by the global multilateralism system that, as we've seen it after the Second World War. So, for example, the Eastern Mediterranean region is a perfect example. You have the UN looking ahead and foreseeing that a United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is imperative for law and order around the globe. It introduces it, it sets the perimeter within which all member states may operate, and now you have regional initiatives like the GF, and you have the IMEC, in effect working within this framework, thus reinforcing it. And those countries who dare to challenge the system, and in the Eastern Mediterranean are quite a few. I mean, out of the huge success that the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea had, the biggest concentration of objectors is in the Eastern Mediterranean. You have Turkey, you have Israel that has not, even though you have adopted the concepts, you have not yet ratified it. You have Syria that has not ratified, you have Libya that has not ratified it, and you have the US, of course. Almost the rest of the world, the whole of the rest of the world has ratified that convention, and it's so crucial to see that abiding by international law is a matter of maturity that all nations that need to participate in such initiatives should manifest.
I think, Aziel, you need to appoint Mr. Pamboridis to your advisory board. He's doing a great job advocating for the UN, and I fully agree. He's convinced me. Let's hear from you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Number of things come to mind with this. First of all, I really like the question of the UN is not preventing wars. I know you said it as a talking point, but many people say it as a real point. I would like to quote former Secretary General of the UN, For those who know it, it's quoted very often, but it's very, very true. The UN is not here to bring the world to paradise. It's here to prevent the world going to hell, right? I really like that because actually, first of all, if you analyze it, it's not very compatible with today's kind of very talk positiveness into existence kind of theories that exist, right? Which I don't think apply to international relations at all. They may apply to societies, but they don't apply to international relations. You don't talk things into existence. They exist, and then you talk. So if you put that phrase front and center, it means let's not over-exaggerate our expectations, first of all. The second thing is the UN is actually not here to prevent wars. The UN is here to provide the framework so that the countries of the world, especially the powerful ones, can prevent most wars. Now, I'm not going to point any fingers, but when members of the Security Council are themselves, so we always criticize the members of the Security Council. That's a very, very common thing because they use the veto. But the veto is legal. It's a legal thing. So you can criticize the concept of it, but you cannot criticize its usage from a legal point of view. They do it because they were awarded that right in order to achieve the balance of power that was needed to establish the UN. So when they do it, they're actually applying the rules. The problem is when they invade other countries, to take the most simple example, and I don't mean only the latest one, the big one, I mean also the previous ones. Members of the Security Council invading other countries. This is not in the UN Charter, and it is not and it is just one example. It's easy to criticize the big ones, but it's just one example to say it's very difficult when you engage into this to then defend a system that is literally made to give some more power to the powerful ones and give some more stability to the weaker ones, right? That's what the UN is about. It's about a balance. So this is what we should be doing, and if we were doing this correctly, I think most wars would be prevented. And when I say this, I can hear inside of me someone saying, yeah, but what about those who are not preventing? Well, that's a moral discussion. It's not an international relations approach. In international relations, you try to avoid most. Actually, it's the same as in society. You try to avoid most crimes, but of course the system is not perfect, so there are some you can't avoid. That's for that. And about what the UN can do in the region, well, the UN has already done something amazing, which is UNCLOS, that my colleague mentioned. I had never thought, even if I studied it, I had never thought that it was the biggest concentration of non-ratifying countries in the world. Actually, it's quite interesting, with the US also being a player. I have to say, for the sake of a balance of approach, that the presence of Greece in the middle with those islands is not helping the others to ratify, because of the potential full effect of the islands. For those that know Law of the Sea, it's very, very central. And the fact that there is distrust between Greece and Turkey is adding to the fact, because Greece is is making a claim that is, by the book. Then Turkey says, okay, this is a full effect that is going to suffocate us economically and all that. While if you look at jurisprudence, Channel Islands, Saint Pierre and Miquelon, many, many things, you realize that islands sometimes are not given full effect and it's fine and all that. So there is a little bit of a trust issue, with Greece being not the only first of all, Greece is not necessarily a problem, but it is perceived as such, and other countries, and of course Cyprus with the division of the island and all these kind of things. So it doesn't help at all. And the last thing I wanted to say about what my colleague said before, that we believe in, and I saw some eyes not being, I don't know, I saw some disapproval, which is understandable when he said, I believe in the UN as a foundation. Let me say this. I think the UN is the canary in front of the coal mine. When there were coal mines can attract a lot of gases, and when there are too many gases, then they can explode. We used to put canaries, especially in the north of Europe, in front of the coal mine. The canary would die when the gases were present, and then the workers had time to leave. The UN is the canary. It's nothing more than that, nothing less than that. If the UN dies, it will be a significant blow to the idea that the international law exists, has to be respected, and this is the way to go. If it doesn't mean the UN represents it entirely, but if it does die, then we're going probably in the other direction. As long as it's there, we know that this is our path, imperfect, and so on and so forth.
So things can get worse. Well, time flies if we're having a great time, and I think we had a great time, but unfortunately time has elapsed. CEV is here to make sure that I finish on time. Thank you for keeping us on time. I want to thank the distinguished panel. I think we succeeded in fulfilling our mission of showing why the East Mediterranean is of strategic significance to European and global security processes, supply chains, energy, not the least, but also amplifying the international institutions and international law framework. I hope this is not going to be the last time we all gather in a panel. I promise to invite you in Oxford, actually. We can make it. We can do one more. Well, if the audience wants to come as well, you know. See, I see some positive nods, so that's sold. But thank you very much to the speakers, thank you very much to the audience, and thank you very much to the lovely people of Cyprus Forum for having us with them for the 4th time now. Thank you very, very much.